Ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, life with outdoors, and if you're truly connected. First, I wrote this song whenever I was in Spain, and I was feeling very nostalgic and was listening to Fetty Wap's Zoo-Wop, the Remy Boys 17, yeah, that song. So that was kind of the beat inspiration of it. But moving on to the lyrics, sometimes I write lyrics as a form of therapy to, release some kind of emotion. Art is very therapeutic in that way. Sometimes I'm in a silly, goofy mood and I want to write something that I think is funny. But other times I write songs for, very philosophical or spiritual reasons, and I want to convey some kind of idea with that. Most people write books or give lectures or something like that, and I'm not at that stage in my life where I'm ready to do that. Maybe one day I will, but for now I just express that through music. So starting with the latter part, if you're truly connected, I was listening to a lot of Sadhguru. I didn't connect with him in a very long-lasting kind of way, mainly due to his beliefs on certain metals and their medicinal abilities. But moving on from that, he told a very nice story about a woman who would not eat her food. She would give her food to the animals in the streets and just whatever came along, and including ants, not even just dogs and cats, but the smallest of insects. And the people would come along the streets and they would ridicule her, be like, what are you doing? Are you crazy? You're starving, you're hungry, and you're not eating your food. You're just giving away to ants and dogs and whatever. And she just continued on. She didn't change her behavior. But later she said by giving the animals her food, she was full. Now, it's really impossible to know if there was some sort of mystical experience that was going on where somehow the food from the animal was also transferred to her body, or if it was just in a spiritual sense where she is spiritually filled by taking care of the creatures of the earth. And Sadhguru's reflection on this was, if you're truly connected, you can be nourished by anything and everything around you.
And if somebody comes and reminds her, why don't you eat? She would say, I'm full. It took me another 25 years or 20 years to come to this experience where how if you're truly connected, you could be just nourished by anything and everything.
And I find that to be a very beautiful thing, because it asks a lot of questions about individualism, which we'll come to in a second with the next part of Life with Outdoors. But on creating a environment, whether that's a society, an economic situation, a government, whatever that structure looks like, where we're encouraged to be selfless, even if it's not just to humans but also to animals and the world and the planet around us, our environment. We're not really incentivized in any way outside of those who have a drive towards spirituality, or those who may I dare say actually give a f***. And you can give a f*** in other contexts outside of spirituality, whether it's just you want to take care of the planet, or you care about animals, or you have some sentiment that's close to your heart. But we're not living in a situation where that is incentivized nor even encouraged. Which brings me to my next point, which I'm very excited to talk about, which is life with outdoors. So I was watching another YouTube lecture, but this was just a one-off instance, but it spoke to me very deeply about native indigenous tribes. I forget exactly where, but I'm sure this type of instance has been documented so many different times, so I won't go through the effort of trying to find which specific tribe this occurred to. But they were nomadic, so they had this sentiment that they are very collectivist. The needs of the tribe come before the needs of the individual, because it's a sake of survival at that point. But later, when they were voluntarily assimilated, forcibly assimilated, that's a different question. But regardless, they were introduced to a more modern way of life, where they would say, this is your house, this is your door, and here's the lock. Because of this, a lot of these nomadic tribes who've been moved from a nomadic way of life to more of a modern way of life have experienced great difficulties. There's been a major increase in crime and other social and economic problems that I don't want to get into right now, but you already know. So going back to the previous thing about individualism and sort of collectivism, I don't want it to be a very political conversation, because this is about spirituality to me. When you have a door, when you have a lock, it raises a lot of questions on what is on the other side. And in the right context or the right situation, that would create a motive for somebody to do something potentially violent, or maybe if it's not directly violent, it's still harm in some way, by stealing or by doing whatever they can do in order to have something that they don't have but somebody else has. So then I asked myself, what if we just didn't have doors? What if we just didn't have locks? Would the world be a better place if we just all shared everything? And the needs of those around us, we took as seriously as our own needs. What if we gave up all these like icons and materialisms and symbols of some sort of status, such as designer clothes or like a fancy car or like a big house or whatever, and we use those resources to care about those around us? And this was a very difficult topic for me. This is something that was very near and dear to my heart. I spoke to a very close friend about this, and he told me by me giving up everything that wouldn't solve the world's problems. And while that is true on an individualistic level, if I personally give up everything, that doesn't, cure world hunger or right all the wrongs in the world. But if we did it as a collective, if we created a structure, whether that's a government or a society or some sort of system that incentivized us to take care of each other rather than just bypassing and ignoring the world's problems, what would the world look like? I truly don't have an answer to this. I don't think anybody has a real and honest answer to this that is very definitive or even useful, but it is something that I think about a lot. It is something that is near and dear to my heart. How can we create an environment, a situation, a system, a culture, whatever you want to call it, where we're incentivized to take care and look after one another? This has been Life Without Doors, and if you're truly connected, thank you for listening to Chase the Snake.